All right. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Rodolfo, how you doing, man? It's been a long time.
Been a long time indeed.
Okay, listen, it's really crazy what's going on in Austria right now. I don't know whether you're up to date. So my daughter is with me right now. She's going to be picked up soon. So and then we can talk freely. Rodolfo, I was thinking the whole scenario of emigrating, to other countries. A bunch of people that are emigrating to other countries, right? And I also talked recently to Gigi, and he confirmed that. So, I was thinking, what are people doing? I mean, do you have any experience? Like, do you hear any testimonials from people, how they deal with security, privacy, with plausible deniability, with decoy wallets that are actually necessary, I think. And I'm just talking about like single wallet. I'm not even talking about multi-sig, because I think even for special constellation, I think it would be necessary. But let's just take you have a single Coldcard, single wallet, but and then you want to move on. You want to move out of your country, you want to travel. How would people? What's your take? I want to talk to you about Taproot, privacy, security, plausible deniability, and decoy wallets, most of all.
Uh, so it's kind of, I mean, Bitcoiners are really in the move right now. I mean, it's becoming quite obvious that like people are moving, and they have been for the last couple of years now. I think the majority are seeking tax friendly jurisdictions more than anything else in regards to why move. I think people are waking up to the fact that like know, or disproportionately being taxed for their success. Taxation is theft. And I think people tolerated a certain amount of taxes for a certain amount of freedom and a certain amount of government services. But it seems that freedom is going to shit in most places, and government services are going to shit in most places. So people are sort of starting to get tired. And before Bitcoin, it was very hard for you to move, right? Like, you have your equities, or your house, and all that stuff is extremely locally dependent in terms of registration of the ownership of those assets, right? Um, I think a lot of Bitcoiners, especially young Bitcoiners that don't have families yet, that acquire those Bitcoins non KYC, they're just gonna remember 12 words and get the fuck out. Um, it really is that simple.
That's amazing. I mean, isn't that amazing? I mean, it's like unique
Right? I
in
mean,
human history that you can just it's you. It's it's
well,
it's that's it. There's no physicality anymore attached to it. That's amazing.
if you're young, like you don't have a house yet, like ownership of a house, you probably don't have a lot of equities. You don't have any of this other stuff, right? And the smart young ones sort of went all in Bitcoin anyways, right? For the last few years. So, I mean, they have nothing but their clothes and a laptop, right? In terms of true ownership. Uh, so, like, they could just wake up the next day, take a flight, and not go back. Some countries will have exit tax and all that stuff. It gets complicated. People should seek legal advice and all that stuff. But like aside from like the legal consequences, the tax consequences of exiting, um, there is technically and practically nothing that a government can do to hold these people back. I mean, they would just take a plane and go. Wake up the next day in some island somewhere, and with margaritas and people in bikinis, and sort of like that's it. I think once people start waking up to that, like governments are going to have to sort of come up with a plan of like enticing these people not to leave, right? They're going to have to do like Portugal or Germany did, where, for example, there's no taxes to sell crypto after a certain amount of time,
Right.
right? You held for over a year, you
But
don't.
it's changing. Rodolfo. They're already they submitted a proposal in Austria to, I think, from February onwards to sort of put it on the same level like some other assets, like put a 30% capital gains tax or something like that. Until now, recently, it was like you wait a year and then no taxes, right? No capital, no speculation tax, nothing. So it's the times, to be honest with you, is getting scary. My father's already dead. He died like a couple of years ago. He emigrated to Austria with me. He had been into Austria like in the late 50s, 60s, where I wasn't born yet, of course. So he emigrated 1979, Iranian revolution, like millions and millions of Iranians emigrating, like diaspora everywhere, right? So, and I was thinking, yeah, Austria, great countries, very liberal, let's say, liberal, and very respectful of other people's rights, property rights, freedom. And now, you're seeing all these, people are philosophizing now about not only mandatory vaccination, like sort of mandatory, but it's like you see, first of all, you see police people, like Cobra people with machine guns checking on people in restaurants whether they are vaccinated. I mean, this is, I could have never imagined that, Rodolfo, So the motive is here, the incentive is here just to get out, but where to? I mean, are there any countries you would suggest? I mean, is there any country where you'd say, I mean, is there like a place like El Salvador? Can you? I mean, I heard for the duration of the conference, like people are going to the conference. I wish I could go, but they're sort of exempt from all these negative, giving a test or being vaccinated. But what if you want to stay there? What kind of pressure is there?
Issue is, do you want to come back? That's question number one, right? Because that will help you define your action plan on how do you leave. Okay, that's a first thing, especially in regards to your exit tax and everything else. And then where to go is complicated because, as I like to say, most countries have a pro hodl tax setup where they force you to hold the Bitcoin and not sell because they have capital gains tax on the sale of the asset. So they're essentially forcing you to hold, which is kind of
that's a good incentive, yeah.
And then the next part is, most countries, at least for I think for the next few years, will be seeking to restrict civil liberties. I think it's a global trend. I think most countries will be like that. US is the exception because US does have the Second Amendment and red states will say, fuck you and have the means of enforcing that fuck you. I think it's the, for all America has many problems, but they are one of the only last places in the world where people have true freedom. Aside from KIC and MIL and all that kind of crap, but still they have certain inalienable freedoms that they are able to maintain. And then, then these things also depend on what kind of wealth you have, right? Like the size of the amount of money you have, because if you have a lot of money, there is a lot of fancy accounting companies that will help you structure things in a way that you can pay near no taxes too, right? And you can have ownership in very complicated schemas where it'll be very hard for government to try to take it from you too. So it's complicated. It's nice to have a passport of another country because
But not necessarily. I mean, you don't need maybe the pad. Maybe you just need a permanent like residency. I mean, is that would you think good
see,
option?
if you are a citizen of a secondary country, any Western country will likely respect that. So, say for example, if you were in Australia when they said that you cannot leave Australia,
Yeah.
if you had a second citizenship, they cannot hold you. Because they don't want that. That's a major issue, right? You are the citizen of a different country, and if you want to go back to that other country, you're kind of entitled to. So having a secondary citizenship, I think, is paramount for most people. I think it gives you some optionality. The island passports are great and all, but at the same time, they have no teeth, right? Those countries don't really have legal teeth, right? So it's not like they're going to fight your extradition or they're going to fight your right to return to, Turks and Caicos. You know what I mean? It's complicated. So, but they do have great tax jurisdictions there, right? I think finding a country. So first is having a second citizenship is a mandatory thing. And then the second is maybe finding a country that is not necessarily perfect on the tax side of things, but does have some level of law and order, and it does have a certain level of freedom. I think will be sort of very, very helpful.
So yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah. So Rodolfo, let's go a little bit into the technicalities if you want. How would you proceed? Like, what would you suggest to people who, let's say, they want to, they want to emigrate, they want to move out, but they don't know whether they're coming back or not, and they have, they have the Coldcard. How would you go about that? Like, if you wanted, to go, like, have sort of a redundancy, when it comes to security, when a plausible deniability, how would you go about that?
So it gets a little tricky, right? Because, like, let's assume you're leaving a country that has no exit tax, okay, just for purpose of legal framework. So you're not committing a tax crime, right, by leaving with your money. Let's start from that premise. I think it's a good one to start from. So, ideally, you do not take your hardware wallet through an airport, right? Because it's not ideal. They can make you, like, you do have a suspension of civil liberties in airports. They can make you do things that technically they're not allowed to, right? So you don't want to have to explain hardware wallet. You don't want to have to log in, any of that stuff. I mean, a Coldcard, you can still brick the device, right? If that does happen and they make you turn it on, you just type in your brick me pin and the device is bricked. Right? Problem solved. um, and I mean, and then the other thing is, you have a few things to say, like move to the new place, right? So, you buy a new hardware wallet, you ship it to the location that you're going to be in the new, right? And then you just find a way of bringing the seed with you, right? That is in memory.
I mean, you just, yeah, I mean,
It's not that hard, right? Because one is you can just, like, either remember the seed, you can, like,
split it,
write it in the Bible or whatever. Like, it's not like that hard to bring 12, 24 words with you.
Da
right?
Vinci Code, yeah. So
you can bring a encrypted micro SD, in your camera or whatever. Like, there's a million ways you can do that, right?
Makes sense, yeah. Okay.
And then when you arrive at a new location, you just load that back into your Coldcard and you're ready to go, right? And then on the new location, you do set up new, say, metal plates where you do your new setup. Or even better is you travel to the new place, set up a new wallet there, set up metal backups properly as if you would, and maybe you return and then you make a transaction to the new wallet, so that your old metal backups are sort of like, essentially disposed on your old place. So you do have to think about in terms of, like, old backups, new backups. You do have to have all that like nicely sort of lined up. If you're in Europe, because in Europe you can travel through many different countries very easily, it might be actually useful to do some seed XOR and put different metal backups in different, say, countries, right? And you can always make a visit to Switzerland or Monaco, where they do have good privacy in safe deposit boxes, right?
Right.
And you can maybe put part of your backup there, right? Not the whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then you also have passphrases and things like that. So this is all fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of sort of like making a plan, right? Don't just wing it.
All right. How would you like go about when you wanted to create like, okay, let's say it's not about like government or taxes, or let's say it's about, you want to just, not go into a risky situation where whatever, duress or threats, or being robbed or something like that, or $5 wrench attack. Um, is there like, is it easy to make a decoy wallet on your Coldcard
Yeah, yeah, it's fairly simple, you know.
and
You
put
can
some
very
little
well,
amounts on it, so at least it looks like as if there were multiple transactions already going on, so it looks like a credible, plausible deniability wallet.
you make a decoy wallet, but I would also recommend using passphrase for your main wallet. Because even in your main wallet, let's say they beat you enough that like, you say, okay, fine, I'm gonna go into my real wallet, right? And then your real wallet, you can put some more money there, but it's not your real wallet. It's the real wallet without the passphrase. Right? So you can have like different levels. So like create a nice labyrinth where you have like, a few different levels of stuff. And I think like another thing that people maybe sort of like don't put a lot of effort into is making sure you simply cannot sign the funds. So, maybe you put a passphrase that you cannot remember, even if you're drugged, right? And then you put that passphrase in a different country.
Hmm.
You actually travel there, make a real big transaction. So it's like, it takes you a week or two to get it done. So even under through duress, right? You simply cannot produce the transaction. Oh, and then we can move into multi-sig and all that stuff too, which you can do wonders with that. But it's just more stuff, right? When people are in the move, I think it's a lot better to have simpler setups. And
Yeah,
then
that's why I'm not such a huge fan of multi-sig. I mean, I don't know, it makes sense for certain situations or certain, I don't know, maybe about when you're thinking about like, checks and balances sort of, or inheritance plans, or I don't know, like when would multi-sig, in what cases would it make sense to, besides the fact, you need to not only have all the keys, but also the map sort of the whole thing. So I wouldn't advise it to noobs. This is what I'm trying to say. So.
yeah, I mean, you could almost say that like passphrase plus seed does like produce like a very uh um similar like security as multi-sig, right? Because it's like multiple parts, right? Um, but multi-sig is fantastic. It's just that it does add a huge level of complication. It also requires a lot more backups, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so now you have to like, now you have 3, 4, 5 backups to store in different locations, because if you're storing the backups in the same location, you're kind of like defeating the purpose.
Hmm.
Right? Um, so you do have that. Now, if you're somebody who has a considerable amount of funds, and you do have uh, like multiple locations to store the backups, right? And you are technically capable of maintaining that multi-signature wallet and all that stuff, then sure, I mean, go for it, right? But that's not the reality of most people, right? Most people are like renters. They have an apartment that they don't even own. So it's not like they can even like break a wall to stick a metal plate inside, right? Um, so it gets very complicated, very fast. Um, yeah.
Are there what kind of? I mean, I know there are a bunch of people who are making great tutorials, guides. Which guides or tutorials would you recommend, or are the guides or tutorials also on Coldcard website, or would you recommend like from BTC by BTC sessions? That are these like the specific questions we just discussed? Um, where would you look? Where would you send
So
people to?
so we do have a bunch of guides on our website. coldcard.com/docs. And if you right on the top, there is one link called community made guides or something like that, where we collect a lot of the guides that other people have made, BTC sessions or Matodel or whatever, right? So like we list those as well there. We try to collect everything in one place. We must have like 20 videos on YouTube just for different aspects of Coldcard as well. There's like hundreds of people who also made videos about Coldcard and how to use it, right? I think at the end of the day, challenge when it comes to practical is that none of these videos are going to tell you like where to put the backup or because nobody wants to dox their setup either. so it gets complicated that way, right? So yeah, I think it's important for people to reflect on like, okay, I have this important things, they have to be kept separated. Where do I put them? Right? The government can go and get into a safe deposit box, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we created SeedXOR, because if you do want to use safe deposit boxes, which are great, you want to make sure that the secret in the safe deposit box is not the full secret. It is plausibly deniable as well, right? So you could go on the SeedXOR and you could deposit some honeypot money in one of the parts, right? And then if somebody gets to it, you actually know that they spent it, right? So you get a warning there. But yeah, so it's very important for people to sort of like put some effort into thinking about like what are the attack scenarios, who can get to the backups, where the backups are going to be, if you die, how do the backups get to somebody that is going to get the money and all that stuff, especially if you have kids.
Okay, so yeah, I was thinking like like specific, like you already, let's say, suppose you already have a Coldcard, you have a single wallet, but then you want to add exactly what you just elaborated on previously, like you want to have like a main wallet and then sort of a decoy wallet or your main wallet with a passphrase, but like how would you do that like afterwards, after you already set up, but you just want to like create those decoy wallets or add passphrase. Mm-hmm.
So part of the design of SeedXOR was so that you can just XOR as an existing seed. You don't have to move the funds, right? Now, when you're using passphrase, you have to essentially redeposit into the new wallet plus passphrase, because passphrase is not a password; it's part of the secret. So yeah. So if you already have a seed plus passphrase, right? So you already are set up with a passphrase. It's very easy to seed XOR your seed. You go the Coldcard and you go, I can't remember now, export or whatever, seed XOR, boom, it creates the two parts for you, and you just back those up, and then you take your original backup and you put it somewhere else or destroy it, right? And then if you don't have a passphrase yet, then I'd recommend adding a passphrase and moving the funds to the passphrase wallet. Passphrase truly is a wonderful feature.
Mm-hmm. And what if you just have a single wallet without a passphrase, just a simple without any like you
I
would
know
have
I would definitely recommend moving the funds to passphrase.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's an exponential increase in security in many different aspects, right? Like from having more options in terms of like having more accounts, because you could have multiple passphrases. You could with the same seed. You do have now plausible deniability on your original seed, and you are adding more entropy to your original seed as well. So there is a lot of things going on there that are very, very interesting.
Right. There was once a discussion on Twitter where you commented, you said, and I think I confirmed sort of what you said at that time. It was something about like, you can use the Coldcard. There's no excuse. There's no more excuse not to use the Coldcard, because even a noob can use it now. You don't necessarily need to use it in an air. What do you call it? Like in an air-gapped fashion, like with the micro SD card back and forth. You can also use the, what do you call it? The plug-in, the cable, right? The USB cable. But
there's this weird narrative out there where it's kind of like, I don't know if it's competitor or if it's just I can't explain, but it's like there is people who say that, oh, Coldcard is the most secure, but it's not the easiest to use. And it's not true. If you just use Coldcard like you use other hardware wallets, right, by plugging in with an easy to use wallet, it's exactly the same experience. If anything, it's probably easier because it does have buttons. So like, it's like I don't know, it feels like it's like a competitor created narrative there so that people sort of go buy something else that's less secure, right?
Right, but what if people they don't, because when I use a Coldcard card, I'm not plugging it into, there's no, it doesn't touch the internet, right? It's about like touching this you don't want to have this risk factor. So what if there are noobs who just want to plug it in and use it like the Trezor, like
fine. It's actually more secure than the Trezor plugged in still. Like you're still getting a substantial amount of security here, right? Like it's unclearable.
Explain why. What's the difference with Coldcard when you use it like, not air gapped, with a micro SD card, but like, just directly with the cable?
So what's cool about air gap is that like it gives you security against the unknown, right? Because no device is free of bugs. Nothing is like, 100%, right? So when you're not connected, you're simply not giving exposure, right? But, there is like tens of thousands of people out there who use Coldcard on USB, right? And it's a fairly secure setup, right? We have like a very, very secure USB setup. It is encrypted. It does a bunch of very interesting things there to maintain that security, right? And when the device is unplugged, it's a secure, physically secure device, right? When you're using like something like a Trezor or whatever, like I don't think their USB is encrypted, and when the device is unplugged, it's not physically secured.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So even using the Coldcard with USB, like you're still gaining like 100 times more security. Let's say it that way, right? But you're doing it the easy way.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about Taproot. so, the way I understand it is that the wallet makers, or hardware wallet makers, they need to somehow make it compatible with Taproot, right? I mean, it's not like automatic. You can do automatic like what's the process here? Like, do we have to wait until Coldcard, or you guys make changes to?
Yes. So like Taproot is a whole new signature, right? It uses Schnorr. It doesn't use SHA, right? So RSA.
Okay,
So,
maybe okay. Just for general understanding, what's Taproot? Does it increase privacy, fungibility?
yeah, so like I think people are overblowing a little bit, right? Because it's exciting. It's an incremental improvement to Bitcoin, but it is a fundamental change. The new cryptographic formula, let's put it this way, right? So instead of using the old way of signing Bitcoin transactions, we're using a new formula. Okay. So it's kind of important to know that. That's why for devices that sign Bitcoin, right, like Coldcard, it's very important to move slow because, we don't want to ruin people's money, right? So, um, we have a tendency to not just make those changes like immediately, right? Like, it's in development and it's gonna be there at some point, right? There is no need to start moving stuff around, especially people who have funds in cold storage. Don't move stuff, right? Like,
Right.
runs just because there is a new feature out there. So but it is really cool. Like, the transactions are cheaper to make. You cannot tell the difference anymore between multi-sig and single sig, the new address type. But right now, the great majority of the transactions in the network are not going to be per transactions, right? So
what about privacy? I mean, what does it mean? It increases privacy,
so the only real increase in privacy is the fact that you cannot tell if it's a multi-sig transaction or a normal transaction. It's the same address type.
okay, that's it. So there's nothing like beyond that, like make it more like I don't know, more pseudonymous, more anonymous, or more non-trackable. Like what's the connection with chain analysis? Can chain analysis it doesn't have like any more like tools to track it, or
The only difference is that you're not going to be able to see what multi-sig is, right?
gotcha.
So what's nice is that, if, for example, if you're using Lightning, right, you're not going to be able to tell that you're going into a multi-sig for a Lightning channel. So that's the main thing. What we really want to come in is what's going to come later on. It's called signature aggregation. It's still not part of Bitcoin.
What does it mean?
It means that you can aggregate a bunch of signatures in a transaction that doesn't look like it's a bunch of signatures, essentially. So it's actually really cool. You would make coin join extremely, extremely not visible. So, but that's another update for later on. Who knows how many years it's going to take, right? In Bitcoin, we move slow, don't break things, right? So that's sort of like the thing about Schnorr, and because of a lot of aspects of how Taproot Schnorr works, there's going to be other types of between quotes smart contracts you can do. There's a lot of like little aspects like that. So there is like improvements in a lot of different things, but it's all improvements. It's not like like that we're sort of all of a sudden fully private or all of a sudden whatever, right? It's all small improvements. Another very cool thing is that because we're changing signature type, Schnorr has a formal proof. So we know for sure that it doesn't have a backdoor, like RSA, which we just assumed that it doesn't, which is nice. So like if we ever find the issue with RSA, which is unlikely, we have this other signature that's already part of Bitcoin. So now we essentially have a backup signature type. Very cool. It gives Bitcoin like a lot more security. So yeah, that's sort of what it is there. And then threshold signatures, which is musig, not multi-sig. Musig allows you for a lot more interesting, essentially multi-signature schemas, right? Because it's a threshold of amount of being signed as opposed to M of N. So there's nothing developed for that yet, by the way. Like I don't know of any wallet that's doing musig yet. Maybe I missed something, but still, like we're gonna have a lot of services and products coming into the market. They're gonna have a lot of interesting multi-signature solutions once musig gets sort of like adopted and developed.
Let me ask you a little bit off topic because it just popped in my mind. Do you think we will ever be able to someone make use of what do you call it, the dust, the dust of the sats that are somehow accumulated in some of the wallets? Like, can we make use of it? Do we have to wait until Bitcoin reaches?
So I think what's going to happen soon is that the dust limit setting in most wallets will increase or decrease, however you want to look at it. So you're going to be able to move dust because it has economical value now, right? Another thing too is, if the blocks remain quite near free, they are now, it should be very cheap to move those dust inputs, right? Because normally the issue is the input is so small and you need so many to make a transaction that's economically viable versus the fee to consolidate, right?
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is as Bitcoin price goes up, we're going to find more interest in consolidating dust inputs into economically viable inputs.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand. Okay, got you. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. So I've always wondered, what's going to happen to all that dust? If Bitcoin goes to, exponential value, what's going to happen to the dust? That was my question all the time along. But yeah, makes sense now. Yeah. So Rodolfo, I know you probably told that story many times in other podcasts, but how did you like? What was your path to Coldcard? Like, how did you get this idea that? Did you look at other like wallets and you saw for yourself the opportunity to make a much better product? Or what's the story behind that? Behind Coldcard?
Funny. So CoinKite is like one of the oldest Bitcoin companies that exists, right? Like we were doing Bitcoin essentially hardware security modules and things on the server side for many years. I think when our first products hit the market in 2012 or 2011. And we made Bitcoin debit cards back in 2012, 2013. And so we had all this infrastructure, right, for secure Bitcoin operations and for Bitcoin multi-sig, and all that stuff way back then. It was too early. And we didn't want to be in the service side of security. We didn't want to run or custody funds for people. We didn't want to do that anymore, right? It's not something we're personally interested in. So we shut that all off, and then we were sort of like looking for a security solution for ourselves. It's like, okay, I need to store my stuff, and we bought pretty much every hardware wallet that was in the market, and like looking at them, examining them. It's like, I don't want to use any of these. They don't work for me, right? They're either not secure enough, not open enough, or whatever, right? It's just not what I want to use.
So you literally did this sort of a forensic like analysis, like,
Yeah,
oh,
we bought it all, and we
wow.
sort of analyzed them all, and sort of just we were like, okay, great. Well, let's just make our own hardware wallet. So we started the project and sort of did a lot of research and sort of figure out a design that worked for us, that was the right set of trade-offs. And we launched Coldcard, and like as just like an open project, and it's like a lot of people wanted it, so we're like, okay, great, then let's make this into an actual commercial product so that it can service the market. And then that was it. Like we sort of made it into a product, and that grew. At the same time, we had Open Dime and other things going on at the same time. So we love making hardware, and we hate making services. So so we just focused on that.
That's a fantastic product, man. Really. I mean, hardware is hardware. Do you have like any evaluations or I don't know assessment of durability? I mean, what about the micro SD card? Is it possible that it doesn't it's not function anymore, or one part or the other part is like? Do you have experience with that? Are there any testimonials you've received from when it comes to hardware durability?
We do a lot of testing and we get a lot of user feedback, right? But there is two things that people need to keep in mind: bits rot and hardware burns. Okay, so you cannot depend on digital backups against fire and like real water damage or environmental damage, right?
Right. Okay.
And the reality is most Bitcoiners are not going to be robbed. They're going to have their houses burn or something, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And house fires are extremely common. So hardware longevity is less of a consideration than it is to have a metal backup on a seed plate, right? You know, so so you should really look at from that perspective as opposed to the hardware lasting, right? I mean, listen, some of those chips are rated for 100 years.
Hmm.
Like for example, I think the 608B, like the secure element, is rated between 20 and 100 years or something. But like, you can't trust that. Like, look at the range that they are giving you, right? It's absurd. So, um, something can happen, right? And there is defects and things, so you can't depend on that. The micro SD cards that we sell are extremely good quality, right? You see that, like, other vendors will sort of say industrial card, and here is, it comes for free with the package or whatever. It's likely because it's shit. So, real true SoC memory, like the highest grade of this kind of memory, right? Um, is very expensive, and 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 we use the highest grade of that, which is the ones that have the highest temperature latitude and ESD protection, all that stuff for the micro SD. So we really try to source the best that there is. Um, they don't come cheap. They're small size micro SDs, right? I think the ones we sell are from 256 megabytes to about 2 gigabytes, depending on the batch. We try to source the best price we can for the best quality we can, and it just rotates in the store. Whatever we have, it's what we have. Um, and we also check that those cards are not fakes, because, like, a huge amount of the cards out there, even from reliable sources, are fake.
Really?
Yeah, it's very hard to do that. So, like, you
How
have
can
to,
you? So,
X-ray the cards and do all kinds of shit to figure out
oh,
if they're legit.
so how can an average person like differentiate? Like, I mean, what is like? I mean, what if you ordered, I don't know, on Amazon, like, from like
Don't buy
direct?
micro SD cards on Amazon.
Okay. Hmm.
They are just they are not set up to be able to tell what is fake and what's not fake.
Right.
It's just not their competency, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so don't. Wrong place to buy high quality media. It's just the reality of it. And then there's a lot of mislabeling as well. So sometimes you're gonna get like it's a semi fake. So like they'll get like a lower grade industrial card, but then they'll stamp it as just industrial, or they'll stamp it as like industrial whatever, but like it's not really the right thing in there. So like it really gets tricky. Um, really, really tricky. Um, so if you're gonna buy industrial micro SD cards, you have to buy from real sources, or places that do testing.
Hmm. I'm in Austria and European Union, so so you, so if people want to still like order your stuff, your products, it would still come directly from Well, are you planning? What's on the roadmap? I just wanted to ask, like in terms of product development or shipping, delivery, is there something on the roadmap?
So
Or to not to pay customs,
way,
fees?
the way I look at this is, um, you know, it's such a small investment, like based on what you're trying to defend, right? So it's very hard for us to find a secure facility that's going to do
Yeah.
everything we need to do at a price that people are willing to pay, right? So, if I found a facility in Europe just to do that, I'd have to set up some other like company there,
Oh,
so
it's
that
complicated.
the tax
Okay.
stuff
Yeah.
and costs, and then there is the cost of the facility. So like, it's just going to end up costing near the same. So like, set up a business, buy under the business, and then expense it, right?
Mhm.
Uh, the tax, or and it's also the roll of the dice. The majority of the shipments that go to Europe don't really get taxed. Um, so you know, I know it sucks to be charged an extra like few bucks, or $50 or whatever it is. But again, it's like you're trying to defend like real money, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
Mhm.
get cheap on that. It's just really it's a silly savings, right? It's a, as Greg Foss likes to put it, you're picking up pennies in front of a steamroller.
What about the, I'm thinking to get a block clock. Is it block clock, or is that it? The block clock, or am I mixing it up now? What was it called? You know that thing where you can read off the actual the block number or the sats per euro or something. The block clock, right? Is that the block clock or? Yeah. So how much is it right now?
Hang on. Let me take a look. I think it's at $3.99.
Dollars. Okay. Okay.
$9. So that would be probably 300-ish euros, 300 euros.
And how long does the shipping?
It's in stock. We ship like immediately.
Okay. Cool.
It's a very cool device. It's hard to represent in pictures. It's like super thick acrylic on front and back, and it's like there's gold on the PCB, a lot of gold. It really is pretty in person. Like if you have a chance to see it.
And the setup is easy, or can you also like connect it to your full node?
It's fairly easy. No, the problem with the block clock is that like the brains of it are not smart enough to talk to a node. So we have a backend that sort of feeds information to it.
Okay.
And
I remember on the Max Kaiser show, Stacy and Max were like furious because it wasn't working. And you were like making fun of us.
boomers cannot set it up, and like I've offered to help them, but I think they like it like that. So you know what? Just it's like it takes a second to set it up. You just take a picture of your phone of a QR code, and you set it connects to your Wi-Fi, right?
You're right. Okay.
That's not, like there's nothing to it. Pretty funny.
Okay, Rodolfo, I want to respect your time. Just a few more minutes, maybe. Okay, is there anything like we should just mention, for the noobs out there, or for people who want to get into the Coldcard after trying out all kinds of hardware wallets, but now maybe they want to go the next step, the total super secure, paranoid hardware wallet. Is there anything we should have mentioned in terms of, I don't know, privacy, security, decoy wallets, any guides, tutorials, resources?
If they go to coinkite.com/docs, read the docs, read the community guides. Like there really is nothing better than just actually putting some reading in, watching some of those videos, because they will help you clarify. And then try. I mean, get the device, put like a few bucks in it, and play, right? Like send money, receive money, and doing that exercise really sort of helps you like understand what's going on. And once you understand what's going on, it becomes so obvious to you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like there really isn't much to it. And if you're good at like writing docs and things for other noobs, like we're welcome any sort of suggestions, and we happy to link to people's guides and things like that. I think there is a lot of information like on how to use Coldcard out there. Like really, it is surprising.
Yeah, there's real tons, and as you remember, I also did translation for the I think whose videos was it? Was it Keep It Simple Bitcoin, whose videos I sort of translated to German. So there's a bunch of material on YouTube, on your channel, on CoinKite channel, in German, and so many other languages, of course. Yeah.
You did a fairly good job there. Those were pretty long videos.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, well, Rodolfo, thank you so much for your time. If there's any other information or links, or where can people find you, or anything else?
So I'm at NVK on Twitter. Follow our company accounts: the CoinKite one, the Coldcard one, the OpenDime one. Black Friday is coming, so bookmark bitcoinblackfriday.org. If you are a company that does have deals, do submit We made it open for everybody. Um, and keep an eye because we have a few more products coming, and it should be fun. Like I have like probably like 4 new products coming. So like
Wow.
just keep an eye on our accounts.
Yeah, yeah, and for my listeners or followers, if you want to order, I have a special discount code. That's Davani, my last name, Davani. And yeah, Rodolfo, that was fun. Thank you so much. I mean, I didn't want to go into technicalities too much, just to give people a bigger picture, like or where people can find or understand the background, like what's up with the Coldcard, with all these topics we discussed, whether it be privacy, plausible deniability, creating decoy wallets, or if you want to travel around, like how do you deal with those issues? That's
Yeah.
more.
Well, listen, thanks for having me, and stay safe there in Austria because
Yeah, yeah.
things are weird.
Yeah, we'll see how this whole thing develops, but at the moment it doesn't look good, to be honest with you. I mean, they really want to like push for full vaccination. I mean, now the unvaccinated people are locked down essentially. It's
Right.
mind-boggling. I would have never imagined. I mean, that we will have a situation like that in 2021. But this is, I guess, yeah, we got to face reality and do the best. Yeah. Anyway, Rodolfo, thanks so much again, and talk to you soon.
Here.
Take care.